2-5, we're in for 1,000 plus.
Get ready to see quads and just some big old pots.
And don't forget, guys, check out Next Gen Poker Shop if you want some hype merch. Makes you run good.
Yeah, makes you run good.
Good poker merch.
Let's play some cards now.
Let's go.
We have sat at the right table. There is a +1 straddle to 10 and a +2 straddle to $20. I'm in middle position with ace jack of spades, only 15 big blinds with $300. I put in a raise to $55. The low jack player makes the call. Under the gun Shrek makes the call, and the straddler, without looking at his hand, goes all in for $155. Back to me, definitely a slam dunk all in. I just want to Hollywood for a second. I put in that white chip all in. The low jack player folds. Good news, Shrek makes an announcement to the table.
Greg, I'm 6 high right now, and it's offsuit, and all I want to do is call, dude.
Put it in.
All I want to do is call.
We want him to get in there, but he folds. We're going heads up versus a blind hand. Flop comes, 2 spades, the turn is an ace, and the river is a 6. I show, and we're good. Shrek would have scooped that entire pot, but thankfully he folded his 6-4 offsuit, and we take home a very big pot to start us off.
First hand at 2-5, we pick up pocket 8s in the cutoff. There's a low jack limp, and I open to 25. Button makes a call, and the low jack comes along for the ride as well, and 3 ways to a board. It's 9-7-5 rainbow. When it checks to me, this board is pretty bad for my range overall, although it's pretty good for my hand. In between 2 other people, I decide to start this one off with a check, and now the button bets 55. The low jack calls, and I am in a bit of a spot here. I decide to go for a bit unorthodox of a play and put in a check raise to 175. This bet serves as a lot of equity denial from hands like 7-6, like a pair and a gut shot, and also can put 9x holdings in a really weird spot if they don't have a draw to go along with it. I can be playing all of my overpairs this exact same way. I raise it to 175, and the button is flustered. He stands up out of his chair and begins analyzing the board. I'm trying to keep my composure while he's doing so. He goes into the tank and eventually decides to fold. Pretty happy about that situation. It's back onto the low jack and we're in position. He decides to come along for 120 more, and the turn is a 3 of clubs. He checks it to me, and I check this one back for some pot control. The queen of diamonds hits on the river, seemingly a pretty safe card. He checks it to me again, and at this point, I'm happy to take my hand to showdown. No need to turn it into a bigger bluff. I show the 8s, he tells me he missed, and we scoop in a nice little pot our way, starting off the session hot.
I love it, Cash. Way to take it down. We are starting our session in the 1-2 streets. We are on that wait list for 2-5. We look down at ace-king offsuit while we're here, though. In the small blind, there's 2 early position limps, and the button opens it up to $5. That won't be enough. I bump it up to 30, and the small stack second limper jams for less, about 26 bucks. The button calls, and we are off to a flop 3 ways with only 2 of us having action. And that flop comes 7-4-7 rainbow. We c-bet for $50. The button makes the call. We're off to a turn, which is a rainbow 9. I slow down and check. He checks it back. Hoping to improve on the river, which we do. It is the king of diamonds. Let's go. The button's only got about $100 left. I rip it all in for that amount effective. He goes into the tank, but makes the fold, and the short stack jammer has the good old 10 deuce, the Doyle Brunson, and we take this first one down.
Exactly 1 rotation later, the +1 player has rebought and the double straddle is back on. A 1-2, 10-20 in middle position. We look down at pocket jellos. That's worth a raise for sure. I opened for $60. Folds back to the young degens. The under the gun player makes the call, and +1 makes the call as well. And 3 ways to a flop, which comes Jack 5-2, but it's all diamonds, so we don't have the nuts. Checks to me. I'm looking for some value. I bet $80. Shrek makes the fold, and +1 makes the fold. Easy game, boys. Let's go.
Oh boy, it's double board bomb pot time. Do not adjust your television screens. All 9 of us have put in $5, and we're off to 2 boards. The first one comes Jack, Queen, Jack, Rainbow. The second one, Ace 5-10, all spades. I want you to think of what the potential best hand could be to have here. And I'm thinking about that too, as I look down at Jack 7 offsuit with the Jack of spades. Not bad at all. We're in middle position. It checks to me. Let's be aggressive here. I bet $30, and we see 1 caller from Josh, an absolute homie and fan of the channel. So we're going heads up to a turn. on the top, which is a jack, and a spade on the bottom. Yes, you are reading this correctly. We got quads on one board and a flush on the bottom. He checks. I'm not really sure what to do in this spot. I'm not frequently having quads and a flush and a double board bomb pot. I bet $50 he goes into the tank, but makes the fold, and we scoop this one.
This next one gets juicy. We've got pocket sevens and under the gun +2. There's an early position limp, and under the gun 1 opens to 20. I make the call, and the limper calls as well. 3 ways to a board in position. Flop comes 10-6-5 with the flush draw. We flop second pair and some backdoor draws. Pretty solid board for us, honestly, and it checks to the initial aggressor who leads out for 50. I make the call, and under the gun calls as well, which is a bit alarming. The turn comes the 8 of clubs. We now are downgraded to third pair. However, we did pick up an open-ended straight draw. It checks to the initial aggressor again, and he continues the story for 150. Now, this is a really weird spot. Pause the video right now and let me know what you guys would do in the comments, because I was really unsure about my play here. Although it's a big bet and we're clearly not getting the odds to draw to our straight, we could have the best hand some portion of the time. We've got 400 behind, so we do have quite a bit of implied odds if we do hit the straight, and who knows, I could have the best hand some portion of the time here. I'm just not sure how often under the gun 1 is going to be bluffing into 2 people on this turn card. And so I was a bit unsure, but I do make the call. Under the gun folds, and we're off to a river, heads up, and it is an offsuit 9. We absolutely drill the straight. I'm feeling great, and even better when he checks to me. I've got 400, like I said, and all those chips are going in the middle. I could do this with some bluffs too, and he goes into the tank. He thinks about it for maybe a minute or so before flicking in that call. I show him the bad news. He lets out a frustrated sigh, has to get up from the table, and we scoop in a massive pot. Probably got a little lucky on that river. But let's go, we are running hot.
Things won't be as easy this hand. I look down at pocket queens in the button with 700 in my stack. We've seen under the gun, a +1, and a cut off a limp. I put in a raise to $17, and then the small blind, he puts in a 3-bet to $65. Folds back to me. Think about 4-betting me, but he has me covered. Since he's the tightest guy at the table, I don't think he's going to call me with worse besides ace king. Not trying to flip for all this money. I make the call in position with a very strong hand. Flop comes king 8-4 all hearts. Small blind bets $80, and we do not like that king out there, but we do have the queen of hearts. Definitely worth at least one more call. That's what I do. I put in the call for 80, hand off to a turn card, which is the 7 of clubs. We're hoping for a check, but a check is not what happens. Instead, the small blind player jams it all in for around $560. Now, this is a very tough decision, but he has 2x potted it. I feel like he can be doing this with ace king with no hearts, aces no hearts, those type of hands that we're dominated by. And although I do have the queen with the queen of hearts, this is a tricky spot. I think about it for a long time. Comment below what you guys would do here. Would you call off with the flush draw behind? With second pair, I do this time decide to fold versus a specific player. And he flips over ace queen with the ace of hearts as a bluff. So we get bluffed off. A pretty good hand. A 4-bet would have worked great. Let me know how I played that hand below, but we don't lose all of it. We lose about 160.
The ladies let Frankie down. Hopefully they don't let me down as well, as we have them in middle position. Under the gun straddles to 5. I open it up to $20. The cutoff calls, and the button 3-bets to 75. This is no ordinary button. This is Pez, a chat pro, a fan of the channel, and a looser player to say the least. The straddler makes the call, which surprises me, and it's back on me. Now, my original plan was to 4-bet small versus Pez, but now that the straddler has hopped in here, the plan needs to change and we need to size up. I start by counting out how many chips I have in my head. I count around 475 total. Pez has me covered, and the straddler started with only about 300. I can't think of a size that I like that isn't all in here, so I rip it all in. The cutoff folds, Pez tank folds, and the straddler does not think long before calling. I'm not really sure what he could have. Action's complete though. The pot's now around $700, and we're off to a run out. King in the window is just not what we want to see. King deuce deuce on this flop, a 10 on the turn, 4 on the river. Ace king and pocket 10s are now beating us, and my opponent shows pocket 8. We scoop it. Pez would let me know that he had pocket 10, so we were ahead of him pre-flop like I suspected, but he would have sucked out on us had he called. We scooped this one.
We take our winnings off to the 2-5 table, 700 on a stack, and we look down the button with King Jack of spades. +2 limps, he's the fish of the table, and the hijack limps. I put in a raise to $35. Small blind calls, +2 calls, and the hijack folds. Heading 3 ways to a flop, which comes 7, 8, 9. Not the board we want to see, no spades. Checks to me, I check it back. The turn though is the king of hearts, completing the flush, but we have top pair now and it checks to me. My logic here is any straight, 2-pair, or set, we would have bet this turn. So one thing we lose to are slow played flushes. I put out a value bet for $60. The small blind calls and the +2 player folds. The river is the 5 of hearts, checks to me. I don't decide to bluff here. I decide to take my pair to showdown. And this time we do lose to small blind's king queen offsuit. We're pipped by 1. And we start 2-5 with a loss.
Our table became pretty bad action, and we definitely were not in the top of the best players at the table. A lot of big stacks and some really good players, so I decided to utilize table selection and move over to a juicy action table where there's a $10 mandatory straddle on. So we're playing 2-5-10, 1300 in our stack. First hand we pick up is king queen offsuit in the big blind. Cutoff limps, the small blind completes for $10, and I bumped this one up to 65. Under the gun straddle calls, the cutoff calls, and the small blind calls. I'm licking my chops at how juicy of a table this is. I'm hoping to get paid if we hit. And the flop comes king 8-4 rainbow. Top pair, solid kicker. I'm feeling good. I lead for 105, and only the cutoff comes along. The turn is a second 8. I'm not feeling good about this card because I expect the cutoff to potentially call with some 8x holdings, especially when I have a king. He's only got about 300, 350 behind, and I expect him to bet here if I check to him a pretty good portion of the time. And so I decide to check this one over to him, let him get some rope, and potentially bluff. He checks this one back though, and the river is an offsuit 5. At this point, I'm really confident I have the best hand unless he somehow has a hand like 6-7 or slow played trips. I lead out for 300, pretty much putting him all in. He quickly folds, and I'm assuming he didn't have much because if he had a king, I would have expected him to call, but we're scooping in this pot our way, stacking up more chips. Let's go.
Jello wins, and we look down at pocket Jellos. We're under the gun, and I open it up to $15. We see our friendly foe Pez calling the hijack. Let's do it, my man. The big blind calls as well. We're off to a flop 3 ways, which comes ace king 9 with 2 hearts. Jacks are just never easy, are they? Normally I'd probably fire out a c-bet. If this was heads up, I do check it multi-way, and it checks around. The turn is the 8 of clubs. It brings on a second flush draw. The big blind checks. I put out a bet of $20 now. Pez makes the call, and the big blind calls. And we head off to a river with a little over 100 in the pot. That is an offsuit 3, a brick to say the least. The big blind checks. I'm ready for showdown, and I check. Pez is not ready for showdown. He bets $85, pretty sizable bet in relation to the size of this pot. The big blind folds, and it's on me. Like I said earlier, I think an ace bets this flop in Pez's shoes, and I don't think a king would be value betting here. Pez is known to get a little crazy to top it all off. So with all this in mind, I slide in what I hope is a hero call with third pair, and he shows 7-8 for fourth pair, and we are good. We scoop a $275 pot.
After taking a loss in my first hand, this time look under the gun with pocket queens, $650 in my stack. I just put in a call for $5, +1 raises to 30, +2 calls, and the big blind calls back to me. This is a perfect spot to squeeze. I'm hoping players thinks this looks like a fishy squeeze spot, so when I put in a pretty sizable raise to $200, I'm hoping to get jammed over the top. That's not what happens. The +1 player folds, +2 folds, and the big blind, who is seriously considering putting in a call here after this unnormal play, he puts in the folds. We take down about $90 of dead money, and we're happy to see that.
All right, it is showtime. We are now in the 2-5 streets. My name has been called. And right when I sit down, they let me know that this is a mandatory straddle table and ask if I'm okay with that. I say, of course, but am internally trembling. First hand of note, we have king queen offsuit in the button. Under the gun +3 opens to 40. These are standard opening sizes. Oh my goodness. Folds to me. I make the call, and we go heads up to a flop. This flop comes 4-5-6 with 2 diamonds. He checks, and this is a board that connects way more with my button flat range than it does with his early position opening range. So I go for a bluff, $50. He makes the call, however, so looking to improve on the turn, which we don't. It is the jack of spades, the second spade, and he checks again. I'm thinking he has ace high at this point. Ace jack has obviously just gotten here, but all of the other hands should get out of the way if I double barrel. An important tidbit is I have folded for the first 2 orbits completely, and this is the first hand I've actually played at this table. My image is super tight. I bet $100 with king high. He thinks about it and makes the fold. I am very happy with myself that I was not afraid to bluff at these crazy stakes. Let's see if we can keep it going.
I decide to top up to $1,000. 2-5 is a tough place to play, but we're staying here and trying to get some money back. I'm in the big blind with ace queen offsuit. Low jack fish makes a call for $5, a small blind calls, and I bump it up to $35. Just sufficient low jack makes the call, small blind folds. Head off to a flop, which comes 10-7-4, 2 hearts. We don't connect, and I think this is a great board to c-bet, but I actually decide to just check it this time because the player's gonna be making 2 loose of calls, and he checks it back. The turn is the 5 of spades. This board does not favor the initial aggressor, so I should definitely be checking here, but I decide to get a little spazzy here. I bet $55, and the low jack player makes the call. We're never good here when the river comes the 4 of spades. I check and he checks. He shows king 10 offsuit and he takes us down. That turn bet really accomplishes nothing. I either have the best hand already or he's gonna call with the better hand. So bad bet on the turn and we lose a little bit of money there.
Here is one of the more interesting hands I've seen in a while, especially at this crazy action table. We've got 1500 in our stack and we're on the button playing 2-5-10, and we look down at jack 10 of hearts. Beautiful hand, and even better, under the gun blind raises to $20. And to top that all off, under the gun plus 2, blind calls to $20. So now there is an extra $50 out there for me to take. The low jack limps 20, and I'm on the button. I open this to $100. The straddle, under the gun 2, both make the call for $100. And now the low jack, who originally limped, decides to go all in for $210 total. He was a bit short stacked. And now I'm faced with quite a decision. I can either call for 110 more, which will likely invite the other players in as well, or I can just rip it on top, take my equity, and go to a flop, heads up with this guy with the $200 of extra dead money. I ultimately decide just to call, but looking back, I think I rather would have just raised to something like 800, got the other 2 players out, and been heads up all in against the low jack. But I do make the call, and of course it invites the other 2 to do so as well. We're off to a board 4 ways with a side pot, and it's $800 already in the pot, and it comes ace king jack rainbow with 1 heart. The bottom pair on this board and a backdoor flush draw. It checks to me, and I'm just gonna check this one back. Turn is an offsuit 9, and it checks to me again. I decide to check, and the river is the beautiful queen of clubs. We drill the nuts on the river, and it checks to me again. I bet 300 targeting any 2 pair holdings. However, both of them make the fold. We show the nuts, and the low jack shows us he also has jack 10. He had jack 10 offsuit, so we're at a great table. Anyways, happy to be scooping in this pot, and after this, we decide to rack up and call it a night.
This hand we look down at ace 4 of hearts on the button, and if you're a fan of our Jonathan Little poker coaching tip of the vlog segment, pay attention to this one. We're still playing 2-5-10. The low jack opens it up to $50. I make the call. The big blind calls and the straddler calls. We're off 4 ways to a flop, which comes king 9-5 with 2 hearts. We flop that nut flush draw, and it checks to me. I decide to stab for $75 here. My logic being that this bet allows me to either take it down right now with ace high, or it can set my price to see all 5 cards, because it will likely check to me on the turn if I take the betting lead now. The straddler calls and the low jack calls, so we are looking to improve on this turn, which is the queen of diamonds. No improvement, but our plan works, as it checks to me. I can now take a free river, which I do. I check, and that river is the 3 of clubs, a brick. It's unfortunate. The straddler leads out for $425, the full size of the pot. Low jack folds. I let it go pretty quickly, and he proudly shows 6-7 offsuit for 7 high. He's got some cojones for that one. I still like how I played this hand, however. But Jonathan, should I continue semi-bluffing on the turn to try to take it down right then and there? Or should I take the great price that I've secured myself and see this full run out? Thanks, man.
So I think this is a scenario that you should pretty much always check behind on the turn unless you somehow know that they both have relatively weak hands like middle pair or worse. But since a lot of players will just check call the flop with a hand like king queen, king jack, king 10, queen jack, queen 10, jack 10, etc., it's pretty likely you're not going to get 2 folds on the turn, and you even get check raise. So I definitely like checking behind on the turn and just trying to get there on the river.
We go ahead and move tables, trying to get a little better action. I'm under the gun with pocket fives. I just limped for $5. A low jack player calls. The hijack, who is Ricky, raises to $30. Big blind calls, I call, and low jack calls. Going 4 ways to a flop, which comes 5-8 queen, let's go, just the change we needed. Checks over to the hijack player. He puts in a bet of $55. The big blind player folds, now it's back to me. There's 2 spades on deck and plenty of draws to make the call. Overpair is also going to call here, so I decide to put in a raise to $155. Low jack player folds, and now we've got Ricky in the tank and the hijack. He thinks about it for a good amount of time, trying to decipher what my range is here. I just limp calls, so he thinks I don't have aces, kings, or queens. He's right, I got pocket fives. Ricky makes a good fold, unfortunately for us, and we get a nice genuine reaction from him. Love to see it. Nice scooping in the pot as well. My last hand of the night, we're playing 2-5-10, and it folds the cutoff, who opens for $35. I look down at ace-king offsuit. What a great hand. I actually think calling here has some merit because of the fact that the undergun straddler is the biggest fish of the table. He openly said that he wants to donate money, so I do consider calling for just a moment, but I decide to 3-bet, and because of that little indecisiveness between calling and 3-betting, my 3-bet is too small. I only make it $90 here, which I think I should definitely go bigger. In the cutoff, he makes the call, so we're going heads up versus kind of an old man coffee player type. The flop comes 4-2-3, 2 clubs. Kind of the nut no pair flop because I'm gonna have all the overpairs. I put in a bet of $60, and the cutoff puts in a fat stack of blacks, putting me all in. This is about $700 worth of money. I only have ace high. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those aces or kings holdings that I would normally have here, but only ace king. I put in the fold. Nice hand, sir.
Let's go. Just wrapped up our session back at the apartment now. We played a little 1-2 while waiting for a 2-5 seat and ended up going up $700 there. And then at 2-5, we were in for 500, out for 2,100. So it was a great session. Really happy to book a solid win today. Let's go.
Wowza, the 1-2 streets were beautiful. Plus 725. I'm not gonna lie though, guys, the 2-5-10 streets were a little uncomfortable for me. I stepped away relatively quickly. I'm proud of myself for not making myself sit there longer than I needed to. Only lost 45 there, won 680 on the session. Let's go.
Back at the apartment a couple days later, I was up in 1-2, up about $400, and at 2-5, I lost it all. So I was in for about 1,000, out for 1,000, even on the day. Thanks, boys. Make sure to like and subscribe.